So in this part of the series, we are going to look at conditional statements. So I'm going to put out a program over here, and I'll call this conditional.py. All right, so conditional statements are basically going to be a major part of the logic that you'll be writing as far as computer programs or Python programs are concerned. And these conditional statements are very key because they turn out to implement specific logic. So what we are going to look at over here is we are going to look at the if statements. So we are going to look at the if statements. We're also going to look at the if else. We have the if else, okay. If else, and in the case of Python, we call it elif. Okay, we call it elif like this. Okay, so the if else or else if statements. Then we're also going to look at the else. Okay, so normally you have the else over there. All right, so this is what is going to happen. Now let's say I have a value of x is equal to 10, and I have another value of y is equal to 5. Now let's try and implement some conditional statements over here, and I'm going to explain what it basically does. So we are going to start off by saying if x, and over here we are going to deploy the comparison operators that we spoke about in the previous video. So we are going to say if x is greater than y, okay, if x is greater than y, then we bring out a semicolon over here, then we press enter. Now if you are using VS Code, it will automatically indent this for you, so the indentation is very important. So we are going to say we are going to print let's put this out in a formatted string. So let's say we have this as x is greater than y. All right, so you have it this way. So now this is the conditional statement. Okay, now this portion of the program is only going to execute if this condition is true. All right, so remember we are first of all we are testing whether it is true or false as far as the conditional statement or the comparison is concerned. Now as far as the conditional logic of this entire program is concerned, this portion of the logic or of the program is only going to execute if this condition is true. So if I'm to print this one out, we are saying that yes, 10 is greater than 5, and that's what we have over here. Now let's try and let's say change things up over here, and let me change x to 1. Okay, and let me clear this one over here. So now we can see that as far as this condition is concerned, this is actually going to return a false value. So if it is false, then this print statement is not going to execute. So now see what is going to happen. Now when we run this program, we don't see anything being printed out over here. We don't see anything being printed out over here, and that's simply because this statement is not valid. So because of that, it is not going to execute the block of code under that if statement. Now in order to work or find our way around it, we need to come and go back outside the loop. Okay, so this is the indentation. This particular logic is only going to apply under this condition. So if you want to come outside the condition, then we can come and put, let's say, an else statement over here for now. We are later on going to look at the else if. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say once again, I'm going to use the formatted string, and I'll say so if this condition is not true, then we can say x is less than, and let's try and use y over here. So once again, let me clear this one out, and when we run this, we can see that we have 1 is less than 5, and this is actually the second statement being printed out over here. So depending on what we type over here, we are going to get some of these things. Now in order to make this program very interactive, let me try and put out the input function over here so that we cannot type in things and make the program dynamic. So let's say we have, well, we have number 1 over here, and we have number 2 over here too. So number 2. Let me put out some space over here so that it kind of looks very nice over here. So our logic is going to run, and we are going to ask the user to enter a number. Okay, so number 1 will be stored in variable X, then number 2 will be stored in variable Y, and this particular logic is going to implement as far as the conditional statements are concerned. All right, so before we run this program, remember I made mention of the fact that as far as the input function is concerned, anything we pass through the input function will be stored in here as a string. Okay, so in order to make this an int, and also to make sure that this logic executes correctly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast this into an int. Okay, so that anytime or anything we put in here for the variables is going to be considered an integer, so that this particular logic will hold true. So let me run this once again. So for number 1, I'm going to say 10. I'll press enter. Number 2, I'm going to say 20. And what we have over here, we have 10 is less than 20. So this is actually the second logic that's being implemented over here. Okay, 10 is less than 20, and it is checking. So as we typed over here, we have 10. Okay, and it says if 10 is greater than 20, okay, y is 20. If 10 is greater than 20, and in this case 10 is not greater than 20, so this particular logic is not going to apply over here. Now remember, I also made mention of the fact that we have the elif, okay, statement. So the elif comes in when there are 2 or more logic to implement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come outside the block, okay, because anything we have over here, okay, is going to execute. Anything we have indented over here is going to execute under this condition. Okay, so we come outside it and come and type our elif. So we have elif, and I'm going to say x is equal to 0, and I'll bring the colon over here, and once I do, it gets indented, and once it gets indented, the logic is going to apply if this condition is true. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to print out and also a formatted string. So I'm going to put this one over here. We have x, and I'm saying 0. All right, so let me save this, and once again, let's go over this. So clearly we know what's happening over here on line 5. We are taking inputs from the user, we are storing it in variable x, we are doing same for variable y. Then when we come to line 8, we are checking if this x, whichever value we input, okay, if it is greater than y, then we are printing out this statement. Okay, but then if x is equal to 0, then we are also printing out this statement. Or else we also want to print out this statement if none of these 2 conditions holds. So we are going to test for all 3 instances. So first of all, let's run this, and let's first of all make x greater than y. Okay, so we have x as 30 and we have y as 10. So this x, which is 30, is now greater than y. So this first condition is going to print out. So we are going to see 30 is greater than 10. So when I run this, we are going to see 30 is greater than 10. And this is essentially the first block of logic we are applying over here. So those are the conditions. This condition, this statement will only get executed if this condition is met or it's said to be true. Now, once again, let's clear things up over here and run this program again. And let's try and put in a figure that will implement this second logic over here. So let me change this to 0. All right, so what we have over here. All right, so I'm going to execute this. So once I run this, now because I just want to implement this, let's just put out 0 over here. So let me come in here and type in 0. I'll press enter, and I'll type in 100 over here. So you are seeing that 0 is 0. So this is because this logic is executing, or this condition has been met. So because of that, the block of code under it is going to execute. Okay, and that's essentially what we have over here, because once we get 0, then straight away we are executing this particular logic over here. Now let's look at the last one we have over here, and once again let me clear this one up and run the program again. And let's say we have 20 and we have 100. So if I run this, we see that we have 20 is less than 100, and that's essentially what we have over here, because this condition was checked and it didn't meet this condition, it was false. So because of that, it is executing this logic we have over here. So I'm going to comment everything out over here. So in this session, we're going to write an interactive Python program that checks if a number is odd or even. So the concept behind odd and even numbers as pertains in mathematics is all even numbers gives no remainder, okay, after divided by 2, okay, and the opposite is the odd number. So for instance, if you have a number like 2, okay, so 2 divided by 2 is going to give you a whole number, so you're not going to get any remainder. Okay, then if you have 4 divided by 2, you are not going to get any remainder. Okay, so the keyword is the remainder. And remember, as far as modulus operation is concerned, the modulus gives us the remainder. So based on that logic, we can just draw the line between what we want to do. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm quickly going to create a variable over here, and we are going to say number. So number, let me clear this one out. Okay, so we have number over here, and first of all, let's call the int, okay, or let's try and cast this, okay, so that we have everything as an int. Then we are going to call, or we are just going to say number. All right, so this is going to accept the inputs that we are going to type, and it's going to cast it into an int, and that's what we have over here. So we are going to see this, and we are going to put out some conditional statements over here. We are going to say if, and we are saying that if this number, okay, the modulus of this number, okay, the mode of this number, as we have over here, if the number mode 2, okay, is equal to 0, or if it leaves no remainder, like we have over here, then we are going to print that it is actually an even number. So let's put out a formatted string over here. We are going to say the number is an even number. All right, so let's test this, I mean the program up to this point and see. So let's run this, and we have number. So let's type in 2. Okay, so 2 is an even number, and we see 2 is an even number. Let's run it again, and let's try 4. So we see 4 is an even number. Let's run it again, and let's try 100, and we see 100 is an even number. Now let's run this, and let's try 3, and as you can see, we are not getting anything over here because 3 is not an even number, and as far as the logic is concerned, it is not fulfilling this particular logic we have over here. So let me run it again. 3, sorry, let me put it over here. 3. So nothing is running over here because this condition has not been met. So, all right, so in order to complete this program, okay, as far as odd and even numbers are concerned, all numbers, okay, are either odd or even. So they are some kind of a binary situation. So after writing this if statement, all that we need to come and do is we just have to bring the else, okay, because if it is not odd, it is going to be even. So once this condition is checked, we don't have to come and check another condition for odd numbers. So we can simply write print, and we are going to use a formatted string over here. So we are going to say number is an odd number. All right. So once I save this and run this program, and if I'm to type 3 over here, now 3 is actually an odd number, and because it didn't meet this condition, this block of the code is now the one executing. All right. So now let's run it again and let's type in 4. So 4 is an even number, and that's actually true because it checks for the modulus. Okay, so the number we type in over here, mod 2, if the remainder, okay, if the remainder is equal to 0, then it is actually an even number, else it is an odd number, and that's what we are trying to implement over here. So this is basically a simple program you can write to check for even and odd numbers.